The chapter of time. 1. The meaning of time. 解放. The time is a recorder of the motion of matters. Time rises from motion. There will be no time without the motion. The time exists within all the moving matters and is spread in all the material universe space. The time is antimatters. We can't see, touch, listen, measure, catch, seize, store, borrow, or debit the time. Time is intangible. It can be described but not depicted. The time only exists in the material world. There is no time in the anti-world, the negative universe, just like the thunder and lightning only existing in the clouds. If the sky is clear, there will be no thunder or lightning. The time is both positive and negative. The future time is positive and the past time is negative. The time is universal or specific. The universal feature applies to the whole, while specific feature applies to the individual. We pick up 2 mature pears from the tree and place one in the open air and the other in the fridge. 5 days later, the pear in the open air has rotten while the one in the fridge is still fresh. From the universal point of view of the time, these 2 pears both last 5 days or 120 hours. But from the perspective of the specific feature of the time, 1 day for the pear in the open air is more than 24 hours while 1 day for the one in the fridge is less than 24 hours, or even 1 hour. Time is variable. In different spaces, time is different. The humans regulates that 1 rotation of the Earth is a day, and 1 revolving of the Earth around the Sun is a year. 1 revolving of the Moon around the Earth is a month, lunar calendar. 1 day contains 24 hours and each hour has 60 minutes. The regulations have given convenience to the human activities and the whole world can work and rest regularly in the same time system. The above calculation is made on the premise that the certain object on the Earth remains still. For the objects in motion, the time is a variable. For instance, you take a spaceship and fly to the east. According to the traveling speed of the spaceship, you will spend less than 24 hours a day. The faster the speed is, the less the time you spend. If the spaceship has the same speed as the Earth rotation, 1 day has 24 hours for you. If the spaceship flies to the west and exceeds the speed of the Earth rotation, the 1 day of yours is more than 24 hours. If the 1 day of yours has 240 hours, it has 2,400 hours for the people living on the Earth. If you maintain the movement state, you will not feel the existence of time. 50 years later, when you come back to the Earth, you will find your friends in childhood have all become elderly while you are still a young man. Different locations have different time. What we mean by New York time, Beijing time, London time, etc. account for the above statement. Different zones also have different time. The tropical and the frigid zones have different time. If one person is frozen in the ice, he will have unlimited time. If one man stays in an extremely thermal environment, his time will be shortened. Meanwhile, the time on the sea and the time on the mountain are also different. Different mass has different time. The greater the mass is, the longer life it will have, and vice versa. For the objects with the same size, the diamond has longer life than other stones, wood, and clouds. For the objects with the same mass, the larger they are, the shorter time they will have. The time of 1 kilo meat is shorter than that of 1 kilo stone. For the people with the same weight, the higher he is, the shorter time he will have. The time of the people living on the Earth is longer than that of those living on the Moon. For instance, a man who can live 80 years on the Earth can only live 30 years on the Moon. Different universe spaces have different time. The time on the Moon is different from that on the Earth. The time on the Earth is different from that in the Sun. The man who can live 100 years on the Earth can live 1,000 years in the 1,000-year world and 30,000 years in the 10,000-year world. The main reason is that the Earth, the 1,000-year world planet, and the 10,000-year world planet have different mass. The so-called 1 day in the heaven equals 1 year in the mortal world, is because they are in different spaces. The time can be expanded or compressed. The higher speed the objects have, the more compressed the time will be, and vice versa. For instance, 2 people start from the same line and walk towards the same goal. He who walks faster will reach the goal. His time has been compressed. The other one just walks slowly, stopping at times, picking up gravels on the ground, touching the grass, saying hell to the bird and bye-bye to the cloud. He will reach the goal later. His time has been expanded to the time of life. Because life is composed of matters, flesh body, and antimatters, spiritual body, the time has two meanings for the life too. For the flesh body of the life, time is eternal. That is to say, the flesh body of the life will have the process of birth, growth, aging, and death. No power can stop the process. The humans can't have the eternal time. But the spiritual body of the life is antimatter, which is not limited or constrained by the time, and can cycle in the limitless space. For the flesh body, the time is vertical and composed of the past, present, and the future. For the spiritual body, the time is horizontal. From either point of the life, the spiritual body can enter the horizontal time, going beyond life and death and entering the eternal time-space. In the virtual function image, x-axis represents the time attributes in the scope of matters, while z-axis stands for the time attributes in the scope of antimatters. X-axis is vertical and the z-axis is horizontal. X-axis only travels in the space of the past, present, and future, and the z-axis can get out of the constraint of the present in a short time and enter another space. So we can conclude that when a person dies, only his flesh body dies. The spiritual body of his life follows z-axis at the time point of his death, entering another time space and starting a new life in it. 3. The surmounting of time. 1. Perception and surmounting. Perception. Time changes everything. Time is the key factor to the deformation of objects. The mountain 1,000 years ago was different from what it is today. The river 100 years ago was not the same as it is like today. The person 10 years ago is different from what he is today. It is the same with the tree, flower, moth, cloud, meat, spark, and thunder. Without the movement, there is no time. If there is no orbiting of the Earth around the Sun, there is no such time as the year. If there is no Earth rotation, there is no such time as the day. If there is no revolving of the Moon around the Earth, there is no such time as the month. And there will not be minute, hour, or second. The time will be zero. So without movement, there will be no time. Without the time, everything will be eternal. As far as the object relativity is concerned, when two objects have the same running speed, the time between them is zero. When the Moon revolves around the Earth at the same speed with the Earth rotation, there will be no month. When the Earth revolves around the Sun at the same speed of the light speed, the time in the universal meaning will disappear. Or we say the time in the narrow definition stops while the time in the broad definition still exists and affects the life on the Earth. As far as the objects themselves are concerned, the faster they move, the quicker the time runs and the shorter life they have, and vice versa. For instance, there are two cars, A and B. Car A drives at 120 km per hour and car B at 60 km. Contrasted with other objects, these two cars all run 1 hour. But for car A, the time is 2 times more than car B. If car B is scrapped in 10 years' time, car A will be scrapped in 5 years. For humans, excluding other factors, and we only focus on the impact of speed on human life, the people who do things slowly and orderly will live longer than those always living in a hurry and with efficiency. The late maturing kids will have longer life than the early mature kids. The shepherds live longer than the athletes. The nuns live longer than the prostitutes. And Taoists live longer than the worldly people. Time changes everything. And everything exists in the specific time. To attain eternal existence for an object, we must make the time eternal where it exists. Time determines everything. In the scope of time, everything is empty and illusion. You work hard persistently, but what are you creating? As a matter of fact, you are pursing the illusion. Does the Roman Empire still exist now? Who can remember the name of your grand-grandfather? Some people might think that your merits will be written in the history, and your name will be admired by generations of people. But the fact is that the Earth will one day perish when it moves to the long axis of the Earth universe. Or several hundred years later, the human society will have fundamental changes and your merits will turn to dust and ashes. Who will mourn you every day? Please stop the narcissism and self-cheating. The positive time ages the objects while the negative time returns the objects from old age to the young age. Looking into the future, we will become older. Looking back to the past, we become younger. Follow the time, we become mortal. Reversing the time, we become the celestial beings. For the material world, the time is eternal. For the human beings, the time is short because we are not able to gain the eternal existence in the material world. The short life for us is valuable. We are wasting our time if we focus on seeking the material benefits instead of on seeking the surmounting of time in the limited life. Though the life is short, we must learn how to use our time. If we don't know the mysteries of the universe and the essence of life, our life will be bitter, misery and unhappy, even if we live 1,000 years. Be surmounting. The movement of polarities. On the one hand, the time only exists in the material world. Time generates from the motion of matter. There will be no time without the motion of matter. The food and vegetables stored in the fridge can be kept long because their motion has been greatly reduced. If a car drives 10,000 kilometers a year, it will be scrapped 30 years later. However, if it drives 30,000 kilometers a year, I will be scrapped in 1 year. If a man works hard day and night, ponders day and night, seeks the immediate interest, desires for things eagerly, and finds it difficult to control his temper, he will have shorter life. If he has peaceful mind and peaceful life, he will have longer life, thus surmounting the time. On the other hand, because the anti-world has no time, we will make full use of the antimatter energy to break through the limit and constraint of the time. The spirit, consciousness, thinking, belief, and soul of human beings are all the antimatters. If we live in the world of these antimatters, time will have no impact on us and we can surmount it. The spirit, consciousness, thinking, belief, and soul of humans are connected with the whole negative universe, the anti-world. The achievement will be made by your thinking, by Shui Binyi. The art of application lies in the heart, by Taoists. Tao abides in non-action, yet nothing is left undone, by Lao Tzu. Mind rises from no certain things. By Sakyamuni. The richness lies in the heart rather than the worldly belongs. By Muhammad. Your heart is where your treasures are. Jesus. We will go where our heart is. Only by understanding the meaning of the above words, we can surmount the time and reach eternality. 2. Go against the time. What is going against the time? We see the time as a train and we are sitting on the train. The train moves forward and we run backward. When our speed is the same as that of the train, the time halts or we stop the aging. If we run backward faster than the train, we have entered the negative time and can become younger. The speed we talk about is not the speed in the material world. If understand it with the speed of the material world, we can never run faster than the time. Going against the time is just boating upstream. For the common people, it is difficult because people live in the material world and their tongue, mouth, eyes and nose are manipulated by the materials. In particular, they are heavily constrained by the worldly society, such as the money, fame, beauty, power, the burden of sustaining the elderly and the family, and the daily affairs. And going against the time violates the natural laws, which is an almost impossible task for the common people. They don't understand it and have no time to practice it. If doing improperly, they will suffer from heavy losses, able to handle their daily affairs or attain the younger age. Going against the time is a reverse approach of thinking of senior level. It is quite suitable for the self-improving people in the Buddha and Tao temples. Considering the acceptance of the worldly society, I will not explain it in details. If we are destined to meet, I will explain it to you face to face. Time is impartial to everything in the universe. Hope Allah, ancestor of Buddha, Yahweh and the greatest creator will bless you so that you can surmount the time. The movement of polarities and going against the time are to lengthen the life so that you have enough time to refine and improve yourself, change the life track and develop your life into the structure in the higher level. When the flesh body dies, the spiritual body of our life and enter a completely new world along the z-axis and through the time-space.